to the issue of veteran suicide, which is especially pernicious given some of the unique ways our community interacts with things like firearms. As you know from VA data, that when it comes to choosing a lethal means for suicide, veterans overwhelmingly choose firearms. It's because they're familiar with them. It's because they're more
Yeah.
likely to own them. And in the last 20 years, suicide by firearm has gone down when it comes to civilians, men and women both. For veterans, it's up. For women veterans, it's way up, 13% increase in veteran suicide among women using firearms in the last 20 years. So this is a problem. It's an urgent problem, and it's a problem that's getting worse under VA.
Yes.
And VA has not been able to address this issue. So what are you doing in your agency? What are you doing at the secretary level on down to finally get this address, to finally address this problem and get it under control?
Yeah. So let me have lethal means last in a three-step answer, Alex. One, you are right that the problem is huge, and you are right that it's far too big. Any one death by suicide from a veteran is one too many. I do want to just contest a little bit that we've not seen anything that's reducing that. We just put out the numbers a couple months ago of the transition from 2018 to 2019 numbers. We saw a reduction for the first year in about 10 years that in that time period, about 630 or so fewer deaths by suicide. I'm not saying it because I think we've done enough. I'm just saying that directionally is an important first step. By no means enough of a step. We're going to get to zero here, but that's an important directional change. And so I just want to put that out there as a source of hope. Second, we are underscoring through a lot of our programming, including by making sure that veterans in an emergency situation can see a mental health care professional that day. In an urgent situation, we're beating, in terms of access to mental health care provider, we're beating the kind of the standard, which is 2 days. We're even throughout the pandemic in an urgent rather than emergency situation, urgent situation, we're getting veterans into care in 2 days or less. And so that involves increasing access points. We talked about telehealth a minute ago. It also involves making sure that we reduce the stigma associated with seeking help. And the fact is that all of us seek mental health care. It's a highly logical thing when one is worried about whole health. And it's highly logical that one may find himself struggling a bit, particularly in the course of the pandemic when we find ourselves isolated or anxious. And so this question of access is a question of us having providers. It's a question of us having avenues for veterans to get that access. But then it's also a societal challenge for all of us to underscore that there's no weakness in seeking that access, which then brings me to the third point, which is lethal means safety. We're very familiar with the data that you ticked off, very sadly, Alex. But that's why we have, in the context of our work here at VA, over the course of the last 3 months, dramatically ramped up our lethal means safety training. That comes in a lot of different forms, from television advertisements, where we are out very aggressively in the market at the moment, to social media and earned media interaction, like this one, by the way, where we urge veterans to come take a look at va.gov and hear from us about various lethal means safety steps we can take, including by giving access to firearm locks. We've seen, as a result, just in these first couple of months of this communications effort, dramatic uptake in terms of interaction with our social media posts on this, for example, more than 1 billion interactions. But importantly, that's concretely leading to interaction with us on things like coming to get a firearm lock. And the point here is exactly the point you made in your lead in, Alex, which is oftentimes suicidal ideation comes in a flash. And what we want to make sure is in that moment, there's some distance from that moment of acute desperation, for example, and access to a firearm. And so our training is all around trying to distance that moment, as I say, from that moment of acute ideation. We want to distance that from access to a firearm. There's two ways to do that. One is through the lethal means safety programming that we have. And then the other is through another public affairs campaign we have, which is now we're urging families and veterans alike, even if you're not in a period of crisis, to make a plan for the event that a crisis comes along. We're saying don't wait, reach out. Come see us, even just come visit our website, va.gov/mental health, and see all the kinds of information that we have available so you can plan for that eventuality. We think that these are some very concrete steps, and I hope that these concrete steps lead to an intensification of the process of the progress that we saw from 2018 to 2019. And we're not going to rest until we get to zero, Alex.